bringing the band back together. If you don't know, me and Justin, my buddy right here, we used to make videos on 2 different channels pretty much every day. One of them got banned, called Confirming Your Biases, which were probably unpopular opinions from the government entities. The other one was Macro After Dark, where we used to talk about economic things, right, Justin? I mean, we still talk about it, but just we have been slacking on the videos.
Right. Yeah. No, I was going to say with both of those, CYB actually, I found it, or I found both enjoyable, but CYB was definitely
Confirming Your Biases.
Yeah.
That's what he means.
Yeah, Confirming Your Biases. That was pretty fun.
Yeah.
But as far as macro goes, like I feel like we're kind of in this situation where like if you're an enthusiast in macro and trying to pay attention, maybe like when you graduate when you finish, let's say your freshman year and graduate up, all that you really start to realize is that you realize nothing, which I guess, what's the phrase, Josh?
The more you know, the less you know, you know.
Yeah, there's something like the admitting of one's ignorance is the beginning of wisdom. You know, there's some, you know.
But that's not the point of this video. I was at dinner, I was talking about my income goals. And I was thinking, well, I'd really like to grow my income to around $30,000 per month profit. But that leads you to another question. What now? Because if I had to reflect right now, I'm doing everything that I could ever want with the current income that I'm making. I'm exercising, playing pickleball 5-6 hours a day. I'm working 2-3 hours per day. I'm eating out at very nice restaurants whenever I want to. I'm traveling pretty much every single weekend. How would increasing my income, let's say doubling it, materially impact my life? And let's say I do get there, what now? And that's such a hard question. And Justin is, how do you wrap your head around that?
Yeah, so I would start by saying there's a good study or a good book that came out. I can't remember the name of it. It was talking about people who win the lottery. And basically, it generally ruins people's lives when they win the lottery. And I think maybe the more basic way of looking at it would be this. So when you take a step back and you think about, well, look, you know, financial constraints, as onerous as they might be, they put boundaries on people. Now, you might not like the boundary, but for example, like if you only have so much money, you can only buy so much booze. You can only buy so much hard drugs if that's what you're into or whatever, right? So there's this constraint that's imposed upon it. And so on one hand, again, like as unpleasant as it may be at times, the silver lining is that. So, Josh, in your case, you know, $30,000 a month is basically like $1,000 a day, and for $1,000 a day, if you know what to do with your time, again, what's the phrase? Idle hands are the devil's tools, or something like that. The point is that like if you have a bunch of money and are in need of or searching for something to do, you will find something to do, but it might not be the best thing to do. Hence, you know, the now what question, hence the lottery problem, and hence, you know, the point from that. And Josh, we were talking about dinner, and one of my suspicions that you'll see happen is that right now in today's society, it is very, I would argue, geared towards the individual versus the collective. And I think it's one of those things we want balance between the two.
I would argue just in America, though. In other countries, let's say when we were in Argentina, I would say it was very geared towards the family and not the individual. And I would say most Western worlds today are geared towards the individual. America in particular with that.
Yeah. And you can even go further in America, Josh, we talk about inner cities. Or like not inner cities, but like, you know, the major metros.
Inner cities versus the suburbs, yeah.
Or even versus rural America. Yeah. Well, anyways, so my point though from all of this is that I kind of feel like, you know, there's going to be, I mean, the other analogy I use is that when you think about, I think like mating and dating would be a good example of this. Between how commoditized, I'll keep this usually, between how commoditized relations have become between the sexes, it's one of those things where I make the comment that everyone needs water if you're a human in order to, you know, get by or whatever, right? And you get thirsty when you need water. And it's true you can drink, you know, full sugarcane Coke, and that might like, you know, wet your whistle, but it's not going to really like, you know, satiate the thirst. At the end of the day, you're just going to get thirsty, or probably be more thirsty by the time it wears off. And I think one of the things we're in right now is like you have these inversions, not to make it, you know, an economic thing, but, you know, the yield curve inversion has been running on for, we might be at a record now, but I think you also have other inversions too. And one of those ones is that we have the situation, I would argue, where we as a society, we've never had more abundance, but we've also have never been more miserable at the same time too. And again, it gets back to things like we all have as much, you know, pure sugarcane Coke as we can possibly drink. So like we're not necessarily thirsty as long as we have an ever increasing supply of this.
We have more than enough. We have more, let's say, fast acting entertainment than any of the richest kings in any society ever. And the poorest person in the world, they could masturbate themselves to death by looking at the most, let's say, the most attractive women they've ever laid their eyes upon, doing ungratefully gruesome sexual acts, or or watching Netflix,
Or so I might have heard.
or scrolling on Instagram or TikTok, where the entire goal is to keep you on the platform. But
Yeah.
that does not provide any satisfaction. And you think if I had money, I would do whatever I want to every day, right? That's what I do right now. And there's still something that I'm missing. I was much happier, much more satisfied when I was working 15 hours per day. I mean, as weird as that sounds, the act of trying in the process is what was so much fun. But now that I've automated these things, I just don't need to do anything. And me doing things is actually counterintuitive. So I need to take on more work to continually get more busy. But that still leaves you to these continuous questions. Okay, I'm making a lot more money now, but now what do I do?
Now what?
Yeah, and it's so much more difficult than just what you wrap your mind around. Because I'm telling you guys, it's so much fun. For about 2 weeks, I was playing pickleball 8 hours a day. I was going to the gym. I was eating out twice a day. I was doing everything that you would ever want to if you were retired, let's say at 21 years old. But then you're laying down and you feel nothing at the end of the day, as opposed to the hyper satisfaction that I felt when I was working, and actually thought that I was bettering both myself and society at large. And so how do you get that with an increase in production? Because we were also talking about what happens if there's a increase in productivity in the world, to where people just don't have to work as much because of the AI and computers and automation can do a lot of these things that take over the jobs.
Yeah, but just the daily things in life. Imagine, like, being able to buy like a new Tesla or a new car, and it costs the equivalent of, let's say, like, $20 a day or whatever, right? Because
That's a far stretch, but that's what happened with TVs.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, and the thing is that, like, in a situation like that, or an iPhone, it's the equivalent of, let's say, like, 30 cents or whatever. But the point from this is that, like, you get into this situation where will have a lot of people who have, let me choose words. I'm not trying to be rude or insulting here, but some people kind of, in a sense, get married to their job, and like this gives them their sense of purpose. And if their job is suddenly made redundant, even if, let's say, they're financially set, they have all the stuff they could possibly want. So, like, they don't have to worry about money, they don't have to worry about goods, services, all the stuff. They have all the stuff that they want, save, meaning and purpose. And this is, I think, to your point, in a strange way, is that when the economic rat race, as repugnant as it might be, it does kind of give people meaning and purpose, but in a very, it's like,
I would say it gives you purpose, but it gives you pastime. Having a ton of free time, there is a lot of dangers in that. It's not the right word to use, but as Justin was saying, you will find something to pass that time, which is what gets you down those roads of watching TikTok 7 hours a day, masturbating multiple times a day, doing drugs, drinking every single night, because you are looking for that same satisfaction that you get from doing something hard, but you don't voluntarily put yourself in that position.
Yeah.
And so what am I doing? I'm trying to read a lot more books and listen to them, and just expand my mental capabilities and my skill sets a lot more, because I find a lot of joy in that. But I mean, it's still just, you continuously have to ask yourself this now what question, which having money is 100,000 times better than not having it.
Yeah.
But it's still, like, it doesn't mean you have any less problems.
There's a good way of saying it, is that, let's just say, having money, and I don't necessarily mean like giggy out money. I just simply mean you can do what you want when you want, within reason.
Financial freedom.
Excellent. Financial freedom. Financial freedom is probably a necessary condition for happiness, but is not a sufficient condition for happiness. In other words, if you don't have it, you won't be happy. But just because you do have it doesn't necessarily mean you will be happy. So that's a good one to kind of keep in your back pocket there.
Yeah, I think you need some sort of hobbies and communities, which is why I like pickleball so much. I mean, I have the best community ever.
But see, now we're back at the thing where you have the atomization of the individual versus, being wanting to be plugged back into, the community at large. You also talk about families, and again, not to, to probably beyond the scope of this video, but you and I had a good conversation at dinner just now about how the, let's just say, how the mating and dating aspect of the West right now is, I don't think it's working very well for anyone. Even the people who think that it's working well for them, again, my analogy is it's like, having all the unlimited, full sugarcane coke you could possibly drink. Okay, well, it's nice and, it'll, wet your whistle, but it won't satiate the underlying thirst, especially, if you want something to do it. In other words, I'm basically alluding to children in the sense that by the current system we have seems to be, I don't know if it's intentional, I don't know if it's unintentional or some combination thereof, but the deck seems to be stacked against families with kids, especially large families, which is very sad, I think. I don't think that's going to work out well in the end.
Yeah, so we're talking about problems that no one has. So how do you actually become financially free, Justin? What would you recommend? Because it's such a freaking tough question.
Well, see, the problem is it depends upon where you are on the cycle. So me, Josh, and probably everyone else who see it, it's real estate was, what, helped me out. But with real estate, I was fortunate to start buying with Anne, at 2012.
Yeah, the best possible time.
Yeah, so we were able to buy cheap property with cheap money. It's quite something else to buy overpriced property with overpriced money, or some might argue. So maybe let me take a step back. So this is going to be a vague answer, which I don't think is going to be actionable, but it'll maybe get people on the right thing. You want to find a way to buy back your time from the system. So maybe one of the ways to think about it, and this is what I tell Nate, is maybe you have 3 different versions. As we're talking about money you need to run the operation. Maybe you have, if I just have this much coming in, it's not going to be pretty, but I'm not going to be homeless and I actually have my car or whatever, right? So maybe that's you're wandering in the desert, but you're not dying of thirst. Yeah. Then maybe you have kind of an interim stage where you get to the oasis. And in other words, I would be I've got a little bit more than I had before. I can't necessarily do everything that I want, but I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable. Maybe modestly comfortable, but comfortable. And then the last stage would be you found Mecca. You've wandered through the desert, you found the oasis, wandered beyond the oasis, and now you're at Mecca where you basically have your $30,000 or whatever, right?
Well, even where what I'm making right now, I can do whatever I want to. Well, not quite. Within reason, because what I would like to do is be able to retire my family. And even at $30,000 per month, that would be very challenging. I could hire my mom for, let's say, $5,000 per month, something similar with my dad, maybe pay for my sister's rent. But I constantly, the goalpost is always going to move. I'm never happy. Anytime I crush it with something, I'm just okay, well, how do we double that? I know myself to know that I will never be completely satisfied. I'll always be pushing for more, even though I'm very thankful for what I have. My life is better now than I could have ever have dreamed of when I first met you, Justin. Yeah. I remember I was still in high school and I was I have no freaking clue what I'm going to do.
but so here's another thing too. I was just talking before we started recording. Is that sometimes you don't necessarily know what the answer is. You might be able to figure out what the answer is not. And while that's not necessarily the end goal, that might help through, process of elimination. Figure out, well, I really don't want to do this, or this is really not something that I,
That's actually exactly what I did. I was looking around me and thinking, well, if I do what everyone around me does is after high school, they go to college. After college, they get a job. After they get a job, they hang out with the same friends that they had in high school, and they would go to the same Applebee's and they would drink the same beers on Friday and Saturday night. And then they'd go home and then they can't wait on Monday morning. They'd say, hey guys, I can't wait to hang out with you on Friday. And they just repeat that cycle over and over and over again. And I was thinking, I could not think of something more miserable in my entire life. I think I would hang myself.
Yeah. And then the thing is, I don't want to say they lie to themselves, but they say well, listen, this really sucks, but I'm not going to tell myself that it sucks. In fact, I'm going to try to, invert it and believe that it's awesome.
That's better than saying my life sucks, I guess. But I think that people are happy doing that. I think that my mom has a great time doing that. I personally would want to shoot myself in the head. I'm just being honest. And when I was in high school, I knew that I wanted to shoot myself in the head if my life ended up that way. But that just meant I was okay, I have to do the opposite of what they are doing, because if that is not what I want, let me first start by not going to college. Let me try and mentor or apprentice myself under someone. And that was a incredibly long and strenuous process, which was much more difficult, but ended up 100 times better than I could have dreamed of.
Oh, and one other thing too is that you have to onboard risk to do this too. Josh, we were talking earlier.
Oh yeah.
One of my favorite lines, one of my favorite authors is that one of the problems, not problem, this is true of everyone, including myself, you just have to be aware of it, is people want to triumph, but they don't want to risk. And I think that many people, because many of the, let's say people born maybe in like, their late teens, early 20s, they have, and it's good that they have this. They have the goals, the dreams. Excellent. Very good. Very good. They're willing to buck the trend. Again, very good. But at the same time, too, it's like, look, you're going to have to do some things that are going to make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
In other words, like, it's not so much, and this is what I'm saying, is like, yes, and part of that is having to onboard risk. And I find it very interesting. And then maybe this is, the artist, generation that we're seeing kind of starting to come into fruition here, is you have people who maybe say grew up on the apps, on the phones or whatever, right? And then you have the COVID that came through. But I get the sense, of course, because I'm talking about a generation, I'm permitted to make generalizations, so it's not apply to everyone, but enough to I think be notable, where you have a generation now that's come up that doesn't necessarily understand, or that has gotten very used to winning without actually having to put any skin in the game. And when actually skin is required, they balk and back off because, again, they've never seen a situation.
Well, it's very difficult because, you're looking at it from the outside. I know from very personal experiences, a lot of people were like me, where they knew that college wasn't the right answer, but they, as you always rightfully point out, are more concerned not with what they think is right, but what other people think that their decision is. Because I remember this so gruesomely well that if you were ever a senior in high school, or if you are now, every single person says, "Hey, where are you going to college? What's your plan?" And I'd always say, "I'm not going to college." And the smile on their face drops, and they basically think, okay, this kid is going to frickin' be underneath a bridge trying to ask me for $2 so he can buy me heroin or so he can buy drugs. There was not a single person who was like, "Oh, that's a great idea. College sucks." A lot of people said, "Oh, I don't use my degree for anything, but it was necessary to get the job that I wanted." And I was just thinking, you poor soul. If you think this is the only option, that's why you are where you are. And the funny thing is, every single one of those people who scoffed at me because they thought college was the stupidest answer, I was thinking, if I end up where you are in life by doing the decisions that you made to get there, I would also want to shoot myself in the face. And I'm saying that, not literally, but more so, they were living the same lifestyle that I was trying to run so desperately away from. So I knew deep down, I have to make this decision. I don't know. And for me, it's such an easy decision to make. Even right now, I am looking to take on a job when I run a business simply because I want to learn. And someone said to me, "That sounds crazy. Why wouldn't you just grow your business?" For me, it's a no-brainer, because I know that is the right thing to do. And I don't know if you can teach that, Justin.
No, I don't think you can teach it. I think what you can do is you can kind of allude to it, saying, "Well, look, I don't necessarily know what you're going to what tribulations, problems or whatever you're going to have, or triumphs you're going to have to face in life. But if you go through life trying to arbitrage them away, or trying to minimize them, or trying to never have them, even if you're successful, which is very debatable if that's the case, is it really life that's worth living? See, that's what gets into this thing. It's part of life is, here's a good example. Remember last month we were at Six Flags going on the roller coasters or whatever, right? For all of them, I don't want to go on the roller coaster or whatever, right? I'm too scared. And then we went through it, and then I was like, "Oh, this is actually really fun."
Yeah.
So,
anything that you remember was most likely difficult, and that's what made it worth doing, even though during the time it was a very deep discomfort.
Yeah. But here's what I will say. Here's what I will say is that I do think that I don't know when this will happen, but again, at dinner I mentioned the fact that I think we're probably going to have to go through something as a society that will be defined by everyone will agree on what it was. So, for example, people often say, like myself, I remember where I was when I heard the news 9/11 happened.
I was thinking about being conceived around that time.
Yeah, I'm still in the oven. So there was that. And then if you're from the old generation, you might remember where you were when you heard the news that Reagan was shot or JFK was assassinated, so on and so forth. But the point, though, is that I think that we're going to have to go through a part. It's basically the fourth turning. There's going to be something that's going to bring people together. And it's not going to be nice. It's going to be bad. But this is part of the human condition. It's the bad times that bring us together, for better or worse. Anyways, but if we can get through this, my suspicion is that by the time everything's said and done, I do think that we'll have a problem, or not a problem, but we will have gotten to the point where we can make so many things so cheap but like cheap in a good way, like not like, like poor quality, whether it's AI or automation or the robots coming online. The point is that supply is going to shoot up. And when the supply shoots up, costs are going to go down for all intents and purposes. There's going to be a lot of people trying to figure out what they want to do with their life. And if you couple that in with, let's say, any advancements in medical technology, so let's just say, just hypothetically, let's say you can like double the human lifespan. So let's just say most people will live to call it 160. But let's say from the range from, let's say you stop aging, or let's say from what we now experience is going from, let's say, like 30 to your mid 40s. That would be like going from 30 to like 150 right now, with maybe like the last like 50 to 60, where that would be like more like what we consider old age today, like maybe you're 70 or late 70s, early 80s on that front. But the key thing in this regard is that if that is the case, again, of course, I assume like a magic wand of medical advancement here or whatever, but just hear me out. But this is the case, not only are you going to have people with less to do, right? Because, they don't need to go to their jobs anymore. The system's done it. But they're going to have a whole lot more time to do nothing in, right? And so, again, it's now a problem. And one of the things I would cautiously suggest is going to happen is that I think there's going to be I think we're getting things set up for a major baby boom. Because if you don't have to work, or let's say you have to work maybe like 1 hour a day, 3 days a week to basically have the equivalent of, let's say, like $250,000 of income. Wait, what?
I was just pointing at you for that one.
Yeah.
Because Justin is not known for working 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. every single day. That's for sure.
I have a very busy day of playing video games. But my point, though, is that, but hear me out. So the point is that all of a sudden, like, you would presumably also double, or not double, but like more than double, especially for the ladies, the fertility window. That could open up. And then, like, this is one of those things where I have no idea where this will play out, but maybe like what you'll see happen is that people will get together, get married, maybe have like, 2 or 3 kids. Let's say that takes 20 years. Maybe they take 20 years off and then have like another kid. You see, like, it gets into this really interesting, thing right now versus like right now, it's like, oh, you have kids and now you retire. It's like, well, no, you have kids. Do you want to take some time off and do it again? Because you have like another like 100 years, of this fertility window. Like, let's say late 20s, early 30s.
Even if this is reality, I don't think it's going to be my generation that sees it to happen. So, I mean, maybe, but I don't think so. So me and Justin definitely don't agree on everything. I actually disagree with you on a lot of different opinions, but I mean, that kind of brings us to something else. I
like chocolate. He likes vanilla.
Why the hell does that matter? Like, I mean, we're still freaking really good buddies. Like, why would it matter if you agree with people on everything?
Yeah,
and we're getting to a point where people only hang out with each other if they agree on every single opinion. I think you do this better than anyone I've ever met, where you have such a diverse friend group of people with such a wide range of opinions, and most of them, fortunately, are willing to discuss it with you. But I mean, they
on
would
occasion,
have to be
in small amounts,
with a lot of alcohol involved. Yeah. But I don't know why people care so much if they only hang out with people that think the exact same way as them. I always thought that when I was growing up, I never knew the difference between a Democrat or a Republican. I was like, okay, well, you don't talk about it. We're all friends. If you were a Democrat, I was a Republican, or vice versa. Who the hell would care? We're friends without knowing your personal beliefs. So why would it matter once I learn them? But now it's the complete opposite. And you like turn into a religion, which is,
you're not able to separate the self, or there's really not a sense of self. Like it's the NPC problem. Like people's opinions, as Adams will say, are assigned to people, and look, this has to happen from time to time. You need the opinion assigned to you that you stop at red lights and go at green lights. So again, there's a time and a place for this stuff. But there's also, I think, a more important lesson where like you have to understand this dynamic exists. If you understand the dynamic exists, you'll be in a much better position. But when people refuse to understand the dynamic exists, and then they keep jumping off of it, or they keep they oversubscribe to it and they overtrust it. And that's not a good situation. And I have no idea what the fix is going to be for this too, because there's going to be, to basically fix it, you've got to, I think, overcome cognitive dissonance. And like, even for myself, like that is not fun to do. Every now and then I can pull it out of my head and do it, but like it's
very, very difficult.
Yeah.
This was a freaking weird video. I don't know.
We're kind of all over the place. We've just been going for 24 minutes.
But that's kind of what happened at that's usually what happens if we're in the car talking or at dinner. We'll talk, we'll go off on something else, then we'll talk about something else.